S&P dropped 6. I'm Evan Haining.
Wherever you are, make it Truth Frequency Radio.
Wherever you may be, I'm your host, Nikki Colombo, and welcome to the Nikki Colombo Show. And tonight we have the great Jordan Maxwell with us. Woohoo! Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I appreciate it.
Oh, that is wonderful. Now, tonight, Jordan, we have a young audience in Australia, and can you tell us about how this all started for you? And can you please include that funny story about where you licked all the chocolate off the donuts and put them back in the box?
Yeah. Which one experience was that now? Tell me again.
Well, you were it was kind of like a metaphor for ownership. And you were explaining on one, I've seen many of your videos on ownership and why the elite or the cabal or the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, how they own us. And what you used to do as a little kid, you would get the chocolate donuts and you would lick them all off the icing and put them back in the box so that no one would touch them because you owned them.
Well,
how did that start for you? Like, when you met your girlfriend's father, and
well,
he gave you a book?
I think it's because of my age. I'm not really understanding you really clear.
That's okay. Let's just take it from how this all started for me when you met your girlfriend's father and he gave you a book. Did you have any indications of anything that was strange going on before that happened to you? Or was this the first time you were introduced to something paranormal?
No. There have been many, many strange things happening to me when I was a child, starting at about 6 or 7 years old.
Wow.
I was back in Florida. That's why I was born and raised in Florida. And I had so many strange, otherworldly events happening to me. But being a child, I didn't realize that it was special. I just thought that's the way life was. Until I came to Los Angeles when I was 19 years old, I left home and ended up in California. And I ended up in Los Angeles at 19 years old. And I ended up in a little town. This was back in 1959, which was 59 years ago, 60 years ago. And this little town was called North Hollywood. It was just north of the city of Hollywood. That's why they call it North Hollywood. And it was just a little Mickey Mouse town, nothing big. And I got a job, and on the weekends I would walk down on Saturdays and Sundays. I'd walk downtown, and town was only about the downtown was only about 2 blocks from my house. And so I would go downtown in the morning to have breakfast at a restaurant. And I went down one morning. I went down on Saturday morning, and the place was absolutely crowded. There was no room anywhere. People were standing around waiting. but there was one chair at the counter. So I walked over to the counter and sat down, and there was a girl next to me. I was 19 years old. She was about 17. And so we started talking, and I liked her. She liked me. And so after breakfast, we got up and walked downtown together. And then we walked home together. And then I found out she only lived about 1 block further than I did. She lived on the same street I did, but she only lived 1 block further. She lived 3 blocks from town, and I only lived 2 blocks. And so when we were walking home, she knew where I lived because I got home first. I never followed her home, so I didn't know exactly where she lived until one night she came over to my place and knocked on my door, and I was really shocked to see her at that about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And she said, "My father wants to talk to you." And I said, "I'm not interested to talk to your father." She said, "There's nothing to talk about." And she said, "No, my dad is very important. He's a very important man, and he needs to talk to you because he wants to tell you something." And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I said, okay. So I went with her. We walked back the next block back to her house. And when we were walking up into the yard, her father happened to be coming out of the house, just happened to be coming out, and he saw us. And when he saw us, he waved for us to come on in. And I realized that there was something strange about him. I felt very, very strongly there was something wrong with this man. I didn't know what it was because I'm only a 19-year-old kid, but I know there's something strange about him because I could feel it in my bones. And so when we went inside, she had a younger sister, about 10 years old. And so the 2 girls sat on the floor, and he and I, the father, sat on the sofa. And I sat at one end of the sofa, and he sat at the other. And he was questioning me about my life, about what I'm doing and where I'm going and what I wanted to do and why was I in California, etc. And we were talking, so I felt a little better about him because he was at least talking about things I could relate to. So I felt a little better, though I knew there was still something very strange about him. And then he said to me, just very nonchalantly, he said, "Remember when you were back in Florida and your father built a new back porch?" And that scared me. And I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend. But that really scared me because my dad did build a back porch. And he said, "Remember when your dad built the back porch?" And I shook my head and said, "Yes, I remember." And he said, "Remember also that he built the back porch with the green lumber. It was very green, the lumber, and it smelled funny. You remember that?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, one night when you were about 8 years old, you were in bed and you got up out of bed and you went out on the back porch. And the moon was full, and you looked at the moon, and you sat on the back porch and you picked the wood with your finger because it smelled funny. Remember how you picked the wood with your finger and using it as a toothpick?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, did you do that?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he said, "Well, how would I know that?" And I said, "I don't know how you know that." He said, well, "I know that because we were there and we saw you." And I said, "What do you mean you were there? I didn't see anyone." He said, "No, we saw you. You didn't see us." And he said, "And when you were sitting on the back porch, we were right there with you. You asked God. You looked up the moon and you talked to God, didn't you?" And I didn't know what to say. I didn't answer him. I just looked at him. And he said, "Well, did you talk to God or didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he said, "And what did you say to God?" I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to answer him. And he said, "I'll tell you what you said. You asked God if you could use your life to do something important. You didn't want to just be here because you were born. You wanted to do something with your life that was important." And he was exactly right. And he said, "Did that happen? Is that what you said?" And I shook my head and said, "Yes, that's what I said." And he said, "Well, how did I know that?" I said, "I don't know how you know that." And he said, "Well, we were there with you. We saw you." And he said, you've always been interested in UFOs and aliens and other world stuff, haven't you?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And he said, "Well, would you like to see some UFOs up close tonight?" And I said, "Yes, I would, very much so." And he said, "Well, that much I can do for you. So come with me and I will show you." And so he and I walked out into the porch, the front porch. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And the two girls got up and they came out behind us. There was the four of us, the father and myself and my girlfriend and her younger sister. And so he looks up into the sky. This is in North Hollywood, 59 years ago. He looks up into the sky and he starts inaudibly talking. He's moving his lips. He's obviously talking to someone, or thinks he is, but he's not. You can't hear him. He's just talking. And then he turned to me and he said, "They said that they'll be here in a few moments, just a couple of minutes. They'll be here." And I said, "Who?" He said, "You said you wanted to see the UFOs tonight." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, then give them a minute. They'll be here any minute. They're coming right now." And he said, "They'll be coming from southeast." And sure enough, about 2 minutes later, from southeast, 3 glowing objects, craft, all 3 were beautiful. They were laser in color. The bottom of those round discs was like a pie cut in 6 or 8 pieces, and each piece was circulating a different color. It was about 6 or 8 different colors, and they were circulating, but not so fast as to blend the colors. They were circulating a beautiful, incredibly laser color. I mean, the oranges were gorgeous orange. The greens were profoundly beautiful. And all 3 of them came over slowly. They moved in a triangle. They moved in a triangle formation, and they came over the top of us, and they stopped. And I was staring at them right above our heads, making no sound whatsoever, none. And I was standing there staring at them for a few moments, and I was amazed at how beautiful these things were. They were just gorgeous colors. And so I looked at him, and he was smiling, and I looked at my girlfriend, and she was smiling, and I could read what she was thinking. She was watching to see how I was reacting to everything. I mean, it wasn't anything new to her, but she was curious to see how I was going to react to it. And I was just amazed. And so and then he looks up and he starts talking to them again. And he said, "They said that they're going, but they'll see you later. They're leaving now." And they did. They started to move very slowly. They weren't going very fast. And all 3 of them, all 3 saucer-shaped things, began to move northward. And we watched them for a few minutes as they went northward until they were finally out of sight and they were gone. And that was it. And he said, and so I said to him, I said, "What was this? I saw it." He said, "Well, you said you wanted to see UFOs." I said, "Yeah, but these things were beautiful. What were they?" And he said, "That's us." And I said, "What do you mean us?" And he said, "We've been here for a long time. You just didn't know it." And he said, "We've been watching you. We've been watching you for a long time, and we knew what you were thinking." So he said, "Why are you in California? Why did you come here to Los Angeles?" And I said, "I don't know. I just had to." He said, "That's right. I brought you here. I'm the one that made you come here. I brought you here because we've been watching you. And after all, you did ask God to let you do something with your life. So we're bringing you here so you can do something with your life." And I said, "What am I supposed to do?" He said, "It's not important. All you need to know is that we have brought you here and we have something for you to do." And he told me, he said, "But what we want you to do, you will not do until the last part of your life." And what we want you to do, you will do, because you asked God to let you do it, so we're going to give you something to do. But it won't happen to the last of your life. And he said, but when it comes time for you to act and to do what we want you to do, you will know what you have to do. We won't have to tell you, you will know. So go about your life, go back out and live your life, and don't worry about it. We'll see that you meet who you're supposed to, and you will learn what you're supposed to. And eventually, when it comes time, we will let you know that it's time for you to act and do what we have brought you here to do. And so that was it. And so he said, I'm going to give you a book tonight, and I want you to keep this book with you because it's going to start you on your journey. I'm here to start you on your journey. And so he went in the house and gave me a book, and that book was called The Complete Works of Charles Fort. You can still get it today. It was a bestseller many, many years ago, back in the 1930s and 40s. But it's still a bestseller today. You can go to any library or you can order it on the web. It's called The Complete Works of Charles Fort, F-O-R-T. And it was an extraordinarily fascinating book about all kinds of strange otherworld things which have happened on the earth that nobody has a slightest idea about how to explain. And so I read that book, and it was a phenomenal book. And on the weekend, sometimes I would go over to the house on Saturday or Sunday, and he and I and the mother and the two girls, the five of us, would go out about 50 miles north of Los Angeles out to the high desert where the big defense contractors like Lockheed and the big defense contractors were. We would go out there, and that's all there was out there in the high desert with these enormous big contractors. And we'd go out there on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and we'd go for long walks way out in the desert. And he would tell me about all the different extraterrestrial races which were here. And we would, and on occasion, he would take me to these big mounds that had holes in them, and like small mountains with holes. And we would go into these holes, and it was like a mining holes. And we would walk way down into the earth, and I'd go with him, and my girlfriend would go with me until it went so far she decided she didn't want to go any further. She'd turn around and go back out, and it was just the father and myself. And then we would be walking down those long holes in the ground, and he would say to me, well, this is as far as we could go. We can't go any further. We had flashlights at that point. And I said, why? And he said, because they know we're here. We are in somebody else's property. Oh. They know we're here. And he said, but we can't go any further. But as long as you're with me, it will be all right. As long as I don't go any further and you don't, we'll be all right. So I wanted you to see where some of these extraterrestrials are living. They're living down here in the earth. And I'm not going to go any further because they don't want me to, and so I won't. So we need to turn around and leave. And that was fascinating. And so we came back out, and then one morning I went down to their house on a weekend, and they were totally gone. The house was open and empty. All the doors and windows were open. There was nothing in the house. They had gone. And I mean, they left, period. There was nothing there. And my girlfriend didn't tell me she was leaving. Nobody told me anything. They're just gone. And so I was very hurt that they didn't say anything to me. They just left. But now I look back on it and I understand he was only here to do one thing, and that was to start me on my journey. After he got my attention and started me toward where I was going and my destiny, his job was done, so he moves on. He left, and so he's gone forever. I never heard from him again, ever, or my girlfriend. It was gone forever, And I don't know anything about where they went, but I just know that he said, I brought you here to California because you asked God to let you do something, so we're going to let you do it. And so here it is. I'm at 80 years old. I now know, because of my work and because of all the experiences I've had, I now know why I'm here and what I'm here to do. And he said that. He said, when it comes time for you to do what we brought you here to do, you will know what you're doing and why you have to do it. And so that was a beginning for me back in 1959. And since then, my life has been filled with strange otherworld experiences, leading me in my destiny to today, where I am today.
Jordan,
And
did he look any different to a normal human being? I know that he felt different, but was there any indications that he was an ET? And obviously he's an ET contactee, but did he look different at all? Was he taller, or did he look like a Nordic or anything like that?
I am sure, in my mind, there's no way I could prove it. I wouldn't even bother to try. But in my mind, there's no doubt in my mind, he was not of this world. He was, because I told you when I first saw him, I knew there was something wrong with him. And then when he started telling me things about my life that nobody would know, because it was back in Florida and I was only 8 years old, and nobody would know anything about that because it was late at night. And yet he knew exactly what I had done. He knew precisely everything about me and my family. I know there's something going on here. I don't know who he is, but there's no doubt he was not of this world. He was a very strange man, and I loved the feeling he gave me. In other words, I was fascinated with him. I couldn't figure out who he is and where did he come from. And why me? Why is he talking to me and telling me these things? And so I really loved listening to him, and I was fascinated with the things he was saying. And I am still today, 60 years later, still fascinated with the man that I met, which was my girlfriend's father, some 60 years ago. And I'm still amazed at what he was able to do and how he has led me, or how the spirits have led me to be who I am. Because he told me, we brought you here to do something because you did say you wanted to do something with your life. So we're going to let you do it. We're going to give you something to do. And then he said, you will do it, though. You asked, and we brought you here, and you will do. So and we don't need to tell you today what it is. He said, when it comes that time, you will know what you have to do. So that's it. I mean, that really got me started.
Wow, that's absolutely phenomenal. And I realize that you've had a lot of phenomenal experiences like that, where synchronicity is kicked in, and certain places that you've been and people that have shown up at that time. It makes me think that whether we have free will here, or whether everything is actually up to fate, or maybe we wrote that in our spiritual contract before we got in here. And we got about 3 minutes to the break. What do you reckon, Jordan? Do you reckon we've got free will here, or do you think we're all fated?
Well, I have my own view on that. I have my own view, and I'll tell you what I think in a minute. But I have another experience I'd like to tell you about before I tell you my conclusion on whether we have any freedom or not. There was another experience I had back in the early 90s, 1989 to 1990. In Los Angeles in 1989, I was asked by a couple of friends of mine who were putting on a big conference in Pasadena. They were putting on this big UFO conference, and they asked me if I would speak at the conference. I told them yes, and so they said, all right, we want you to be the keynote speaker, the first speaker of the morning, Saturday morning. And so a week before the event, they called me, and I was in my office. They called me, and they said, we're going over to the hotel this morning to see where we're going to hold the event. We just want to go over and check out the hotel. And he said, would you like to go with us? There were two guys who were putting this event on. They said, do you want to go with us? And I said, sure, I'd love to. So they came by and picked me up, and we went over to the hotel in Pasadena, California. It was a very big hotel. And we were checking out the rooms, and so he said to me, he said, what do you need to do your presentation? Do you need a blackboard or a screen? What are you going to do, and what do you need so we can prepare for it? What are you going to need to do your thing next week? And I said, well, what I want to do is I want just a chair and a table, nothing else. Just put a table on the stage and a chair, and let me sit in front of the audience like a teacher. And I will have a table in front of me where I can spread out all the documents and pictures and things I want to talk about. And I don't need anything special, just a table and a chair so I can sit and talk to the audience. Well, the audience was about 500 people. It was a massive audience.
Wow.
And so he said, and so he told me, he said, all right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put a table and a chair out there on the stage for you, but we will put a photographer behind you. We'll have some guy on a bar stool sitting behind you on the stage with a camera. And so when you pick up a piece of paper to talk to the audience about, hold the paper up so that the guy behind you, sitting behind you with the camera, he can be a video camera. He can zoom in on the document so people can see it, because we'll have closed circuit TV. So he says, so just sit there, and when you're talking, just hold up the paper, and he will look, and he'll zoom in on it with his camera. And so the next week we did that, and it worked out perfect. It worked out very good. I sat in front of it all.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Welcome to the Icke Colombo Show, and we are talking to the wonderful Jordan Maxwell. And Lewista from the chat room says, please tell Jordan that I love all his videos on YouTube, and you can support Jordan on jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's right, isn't it, Jordan?
Yes, it's Jordan Maxwell Show. Only three words. Now, there are other websites out on the web with my name on them, but they're not mine. They don't belong to me. Other people are using my name to make money off of me. My website is Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And let's pick it up from where you were at the big conference and you were writing down on a piece of paper and you had a camera behind you. Let's pick it up from there.
Okay, so I'm on the stage the next Saturday. I'm on the stage. I'm sitting at this table with the guy sitting behind me, and with a video camera. And and anything I'm talking about, he zooms in on with the camera, and people can see it because they had closed circuit television throughout the room. And so that evening, when the conference was over, the guy sitting on the stage with me came over and he said, Jordan, my wife and I would like to have you come for dinner tonight. Can you come over? And I said, sure, of course. And so I got in my car, drove over to their place, And it was a nice condo upstairs, and it was a beautiful place. And his wife was in the kitchen fixing dinner, and he and I was sitting in the front room talking. And he was the one sitting on the stage with me. And he said to me, we were talking about the stuff of the day, UFOs and all that kind of thing. And his wife came out of the kitchen, and she said to him, "Have you told him yet?" And he said, "No, I wasn't going to tell him till after dinner." And I said, "Tell me what?" I said, "I don't like it. I don't like surprises." "You were going to tell me what?" And he said, "Well, I'll tell you a story I've told so many times to so many people, and my wife has heard me so many times tell this story. I'll tell you the story now." And he said, "When I was 17, he said, I just turned 50 about a week ago." And he said, "But when I was 17 years old, I think he said, I was back east in New England, one of the New England states. I think he said like Massachusetts or whatever. And he said, and I was thumbing my way north to go stay with my cousin after school was out. And he said, I was out on the highway thumbing my way to go to my cousin's house. And he said, an old man picked me up in a pickup truck that was very, very old. And he was very old. And the pickup truck smelled bad because he was smoking cigarettes and pipe and cigars. It just smelled terrible. It was an old beat-up car with an old man driving it. And he said, but when I got in the car, he began telling me, as we took off, he began telling me all the secrets of my life. He knew every single fact about my life, my sister, my dad's work, my mother and her friends. He knew everything about my family that was to know, and he was absolutely correct on everything. And he said it really scared me. I was amazed that this old man, whoever he is, knows all about me. And he said, and then when he let me out, he said to me, everything I have told you up till now was to entertain you and get your attention. Now I'm going to tell you something important. He said to me, after you're 50 years old, right after you turn 50 years old, you're going to be on the west side of America. You're going to be on the west coast. And he said, one day you're going to find yourself on the stage, and you're going to be sitting behind a man who's talking to an audience. And he's going to have a table, just going to be a table and a chair, and he's sitting there talking to the audience. And you are going to be sitting behind him with a camera that does not exist today. But it will then, and he's going to be sitting and talking to an audience on the stage, and you're going to be sitting behind him on the stage. And he said, when that happens, you tell him, you make sure you remember to tell him, I put him there. He's not there on that stage by chance. I told you I put him there. So tell him that. So he will know that it was not his idea, it's my idea. And he said, and so today, some 33 years later, whatever it was, he said, today I'm sitting on the stage behind you. And he said, I was so busy trying to get ready for what we were going to do, I wasn't thinking until we finally settled down and you started talking. And then it occurred to me that the prophecy that I was given some 30 some odd years ago was being fulfilled right then and there. He told me I would be after 50 years old, I'd be sitting on a stage with you. And he says, so I just want you to know that this is what the old man told me, is that he put you there this morning. It was his idea, not yours. And so I got up and left the place. I got up and left the condo. I walked downstairs and I walked out in the street. I was so shook. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. And he came out and walked down the street with me. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. This makes no sense to me. He said, I'm just telling you what he told me to tell you. And so I finally got back my senses, and so I went back and we had dinner, and that was it. But this very nice guy told me that this old man had told him I was going to be doing what I was doing, and to tell me that if he put me there, I wasn't there by chance. So that's the kind of thing that I've been living with continually. I have these kind of things happening to me, where strange things, otherworldly things happen to me that I have no idea in the world where they come from, or how people do what they do and know what they know. And I've had all these experiences in my life like that. I've had over 40 different, what I call major experiences with the other world that have told me over and over that there is something going on this earth, and that I am being led in my destiny to do what I do. And so I don't know what else to say. I mean, when
well,
you ask,
it sounds like destiny, doesn't it? It sounds like we might have free will choice in maybe the little things in life, but when it comes to the major stuff, it seems as though we're all destined to, go down a path where we might have written that in our spiritual contract before we got here, doesn't it? Jordan, it seems like it's like a destiny for us, and maybe our past lives, or maybe our souls that have been on other planets and stuff, have brought us here to experience certain things, to bring certain information to the world. And it's like, well, we've already made that. It's like it's very similar to the Matrix when the Oracle says you've already made the choice. You're here to discover why you made the choice.
You brought up the question about, is there any real freedom in our life? If somebody can tell you things about your life and give you an exact place and date, and then it happens. I knew a person in this country today, and still in America today. I knew this guy quite a few years ago, about 30 years ago. And he would be able to tell me things that were going to happen to me in the future. And he would tell me in minute detail, small, tiny detail about what was going to happen to me. He would tell me what color clothes I'm going to be wearing, what day and the date of that day, and what day it would be. And I would be in a car with a girl driving, and he would tell me what she's going to be dressed like, and what I'm going to be dressed like, and what she's going to say, and then what I'm going to say to her, and then what's going to happen to the car, and what's going to happen to us. And he would tell me exactly what color the car is going to be and where it's going to be, and he gave me the street address where the car will be parked. And he would tell me all these little details, but then he would tell me what I'm going to say to her. She's going to say this to you, and then you're going to say that to her. And then a year or two later, a couple of years later, exactly when on that very day, that very hour, at that very street, we're sitting in the car that he told me I would be in. The color of the car was exactly the same. And the girl was wearing the colors he said she would. And so she said something to me, and I answered her saying exactly what he said I was going to say. I was amazed at that, because when I wasn't even thinking about it. And when she said something to me, I answered her, but it was exactly what he said I was going to say. And so
that's astonishing, isn't it? It's like your whole life is one spots of deja vu all the time, isn't it?
Yes, it's absolutely incredible. But when I tell people this experience, many people ask me the wrong questions. They say to me, "Well, how did he do that?" That's not the correct question. That's not the right question to ask. How he does it. All I know is he does do it. And so the right question is, what does that tell you about your personal freedom? If somebody can tell you in minute detail 2 years ahead of time where you're going to be in minute detail, and that's exactly what happens, precisely that happens, just the way you were told, what does that tell you about your freedom and your future? It tells me you don't have any freedom. The world is a stage, and each must play his part. And somehow or another, we are all being played on a stage in the universe. Somehow or another, somebody somebody in this universe knows who we are and is playing us like actors on a stage. And this is why we say things like that the world is a stage and each must play his part. I am totally convinced that that is true, that somebody is guiding our destiny and our lives and we don't even know it. But now, in particular, now people are beginning to suspect there's something going on in this world that makes no sense, but something is happening. And I will guarantee you, I know something very serious is happening on the earth today. And I just feel that I'm a part of it. Whatever it is, I've been told over and over, we brought you here to do something and you will do it. And now I know what's going on and I'm doing what I believe I was given to do. And especially because somebody can tell me in the future what I will be doing, and it's exactly right. And
it's
so
totally,
at this point,
it's totally extraordinary, isn't it? It just makes you think that we're living in a simulation of a matrix that's digital, that's everything seems to be programs that are programmed out for us.
Well, look at your brain is a computer, and your brain is connected to the wiring system, which is in your spinal cord. And in your body is a battery. It's called a biological battery. And it's because of the electrical current that your muscles are moving. And we know that that's how we are able to live and move and work and play and do what we do, is because our body is an electrical unit. And it gives off heat. And we're perspiring. Well, it gives off heat because our body is a battery. And that's why we have to drink water all the time. You're putting water in the battery. And therefore, your brain is a computer. And therefore, there must be some kind of a Wi-Fi communication with all humans from above. Somewhere there's some kind of a Wi-Fi system that is connecting itself to all human brains, all human minds, so that we are all beginning to suspect there's something going on, but we didn't know it. And now it's beginning to show itself. And I do believe it has to do with extraterrestrial life forms, because there's no doubt in my mind that we are being visited by other world entities. The government of the U.S. government calls them EBs. EBE, extraterrestrial biological entities. These extraterrestrial biological entities are here. We know they're here. I know because of the things which have happened to me that have no excuse at all, but people who know me and they know my life and what's going to happen to me many years in the future. Something strange is going on the earth today. We're all around the world feeling it. And that's,
I spoke to David Icke a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him, David, between my ET contactee friends, we kind of worked out that there's a bunch of Orion reptilians on Saturn, and they might be, and if you turn Saturn side on, it looks like a 1930s microphone, and that's where maybe some of these programs are being programmed out from Saturn to the moon and relaying down to the electromagnetic field around the Earth, and maybe that's how our brains are tapping into some of these programs. And I know you've talked about Saturn a lot, and I've listened to a lot of your stuff and looked at a lot of your videos, and the so many ties with Saturn, Jordan. It's absolutely incredible. Like, I watched the movie the In the Name of the Rose a few weeks ago with what's that gorgeous actor that used to play James Bond? What's his name? I can't remember. But anyway, he when you look at this movie and you see how these monks have cut their hair, I was having a bit of a giggle at it, but I had a really good look and I thought, wow, they've cut their hair. It looks like a ring around their head and they've shaved the top, so it looks like Saturn, right? And there's just so much Saturn symbology in this movie. I just kept tying everything in, and then the cube, and then the Mecca, and then the worship of Saturn and the symbolism, and I've always wanted to ask you, how did you discover the little owl on the dollar bill?
That is an interesting story. I was introduced to the idea when I was a late teens, when I was like 17 or 18 years old. I discovered, because I was always reading at the library, I was always studying and reading, and I was very interested in theology and religion. That's my most important and favorite subject, is religion and theology and spirituality. And I could sit and talk for days on that subject, about the real story about God and who created us and where we come from and what we're doing and where we're going. That's something I've been looking at for some 60 years. I'm fascinated by what is in the world of religion, and that's something I've been worrying and interested in for many, many years. And I discovered many years ago that by talking to some rabbis in America, that the Messiah, the one who is called the Messiah in the Old Testament, who is to come, that word Messiah in the Old Testament, in the Jewish Old Testament, is referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. The chief cornerstone the builders rejected. In the New Testament, the Christian scriptures, Jesus is referred to the same way. Jesus is referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. And so I started looking at that back in 67, 68. I began looking into that chief cornerstone the builders rejected. And that was a symbol for the Messiah in the Old Testament and the symbol for Jesus in the New Testament. Well, the Christian church today teaches that Jesus is the cornerstone of the church. No, that's not correct. That is wrong. Jesus is not the cornerstone of the church. Jesus is said to be, in the Bible, is not cornerstone. In the Bible, Jesus is called the chief cornerstone of the church. The word chief cornerstone comes from a Greek word which means a triangle perched on top of a pyramid. The triangle on top of a pyramid is called a pyramidion. A pyramidion is a tiny pyramid sitting on top of a big pyramid. Because if you have a perfect triangle and you take a razor blade and you cut off that little tip at the top, that little tip at the top is itself a pyramid, but it's a very small one, but it's a pyramid. And then if you take that little pyramid and put it on the big one, then you complete the triangle. And so that's why that triangle is on the American dollar bill, because it represents the Messiah. It represents Jesus. And so many people go out and talk about the pyramid being the eye of Lucifer, of the devil, and the eye of the devil on the dollar bill. No, you're wrong. The scripture in the Bible, go back to the Bible and you will read it. Chief cornerstone, and look up the word in a Bible dictionary, chief cornerstone. It will tell you it is a triangle that sits on top of a pyramid. So the bottom line is, today, when you're holding a dollar bill, a $1 bill from America in your hand, on the back is a pyramid with a triangle at the top. That is a symbol in Judaism for the Messiah. It is a symbol in the Christian world for Jesus, the Messiah. So you have to understand that there's a very big and dark story here that's been hidden. And the word hidden in Latin is occult. Occult. Occult means hidden, not evil, not devil, not bad, but just means hidden. So if you put your hand in your pocket, it becomes an occult hand because it's hidden. And so much of our knowledge today has been hidden. We don't know what's going on. We're not being told what's going on because it's been hidden from us. Hidden by who? Somebody's hiding incredible world of knowledge from us. They're not telling us.
And you know what, Jordan. Also, the word oculi is a derivative of occult, and oculi is the oculi nerve, and that it indicates that we can see in the dark, just like the owl.
Yeah.
How this is an extraordinary discovery. How did you I know you're probably getting to this. How did you actually discover this tiny little owl on the dollar bill, and how does that tie into everything else? Because when we look at a Bohemian Grove, we see the big owl, but yet they are worshipping the Baphomet. So, there's a piece missing there somewhere. Like, what's going on there?
Well, I think the piece which is missing is, like I said, when I met my girlfriend's father, he said, after we saw the UFOs and they left, and he said, we brought you here. We brought you here to do what you said you wanted to do. You wanted to do something for God, but we brought you here so you could. And he said, and therefore we will see to it that you meet who you're supposed to. We will teach you what you're supposed to understand and learn, and you will find out what we want you to know, and then you will teach that to people. You will tell the people about that later in your life. At the very last part of your life, you will finally see what you have to do. Well, I do see what I have to do. It makes sense now, because I was told by people, very powerful people in this world that I know, have told me these things. I'm not a genius, but that's the one thing I bring to the table. I say this all the time. You probably have heard me say it, that I am not the world's foremost authority on anything. I'm not an authority at all on anything. But what I bring to the table, what I feel that I do, which is important, are the people that I have met in my life that I was supposed to meet. And they have told me incredibly important things about the life that we're living. And so I know that now my job is to talk to the people of this world and tell them the things which I have been told by very powerful people in this world that you have no idea that I know. And the things that they have told me, and the things which I've seen, and things which I have learned over all these years, like my girlfriend's father said I would. He said, we will make sure that you meet who you're supposed to, and you will learn what you're supposed to, so it will be in time for the last part of your life. You will begin to tell the people what they need to know. And so I'm looking back on all of this, but I don't want to present myself as an authority on anything. I'm just telling you what I was told and what I have learned, what I have been told by important people around the world. I just am telling you now. I'm not saying that I'm an authority on anything. I'm just an ambassador. Not an ambassador, I'm just an emissary. Not an ambassador, because an ambassador speaks for the power that sends him. And
you know what? And thank God that you did start speaking, Jordan, because a lot of us would be still left in the dark about what's going on here. We've got about 30 seconds to the next break. And on the other side, I'd like to ask you about how you met the wonderful Anthony J. Hilder and how you brought David Icke to America, because David Icke has been banned in our country. And right now, we were all asked to write a letter to the minister to overturn that decision. And you can see, guys, what is really going in the world when Australia has a great speaker like David Icke banned. So we'll be there back on the other side of the break, guys, with that fantastic Jordan Maxwell. So stick around.
Truth Frequency Radio is your number one. This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
are back, and I'm your host, Nikki Colombo. Welcome to the Nikki Colombo Show, guys, and we are talking to that fantastic Jordan Maxwell. Oh, my God. Jordan, can you please tell us, how did you meet the fantastic Anthony J. Hilder? And if you don't know, guys, Anthony J. Hilder was the first to put all this information on the old vinyl records years and years ago. I think when he was in Hollywood, and he was an actor back then, and I think the record was got the voice of Morgan Freeman or something. Jordan, help me out with that. Do you remember the guy's name?
Yes, it was Myron Fagan was the man who, yeah. Anthony Hilder, I've known for many, many years, going back to the 1960s, the late 60s and early 70s. And Anthony recorded in Hollywood Myron Fagan. And Myron Fagan was one of the most extraordinary people in the world, period. Back in 1966, Myron Fagan recorded about 8 hours of recording for Anthony Hilder. He was a producer in Hollywood, and he produced 8 hours of audio tape of Myron Fagan explaining the whole world and how the world operates. And it was the most incredible story I have ever heard in my life. I have Myron Fagan on my website. I have the whole lecture he gave on my website. If you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see a banner which says Jordan Maxwell Research Society. If you click on the Jordan Maxwell Research Society, it will take you to a second website that I have where I'm putting all of my research material up on the web. I don't want to put it out there for free for just anybody to see. I'm tired of doing all my work and giving it out to the world for free, where nobody appreciates any of it. And so I'm putting it out there for only those people who really want to know what's going on. I put my website out there, and it's called the Jordan Maxwell Research Society. And if you join, it only takes one donation to join my research society. Go on my website again to Jordan Maxwell Show and join my research society. And then you will see, when you get into my research website, you will see a folder that says audio video. Go on to audio, and I think the very first audio, the second one, is Myron Fagan. And click on Myron Fagan, the Illuminati, and listen to that 2.5 hours. It's a 2.5 hour lecture that Myron Fagan gave, which I am recording the whole thing, and it's on my website. And as far as I'm concerned, you will never hear anything close to what that man did back in 1966. He told the world what was going on in governments and religions around the world, and what was going to happen and what was coming. And he talked about the New World Order. And it was the most explosive and dynamic lecture I have ever heard in my life. And I wanted to put it on my website. And Anthony let me do it. Anthony Hilder was the producer, and he let me put it on my website. So just go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Research, join the research, and go then to the audio video and listen to Myron Fagan talk about the world that we live in, and you will not believe it. He did this lecture back in 1966, a long time ago.
And how did you and Anthony meet? That must have been a phenomenal meeting, and the situation surrounding that, especially with you guys being in the similar genres. I mean, that must have been absolutely, spine-tingling when you guys met. How did that happen, Jordan?
Well, Anthony said that he was helping Barry Goldwater back in 1960s. Barry Goldwater was running for president. And he contacted Anthony Hilder to help him in Hollywood, because Anthony Hilder knew everybody in Hollywood. He was a Hollywood producer. He was also in charge of production at many big studios, and he was a man around town. Everybody knew Anthony Hilder in Hollywood because he was the one that was making things happen in Hollywood. And so when Barry Goldwater decided he wanted to run for president, he contacted Anthony Hilder and said, I want to have a big party at my home in Arizona. And I'd like for you to get as many movie stars and important people you can and bring them to my home, and we could talk about me running for president and what Hollywood can do for me. And so Anthony Hilder said, so I contacted all the top movie stars, and a lot of them wanted to go to Barry Goldwater's home and have dinner and sit down and talk with him about what they could do to help him become president. And he said when he was there, Orson Welles was with him. Anthony Hilder said Orson Welles was sitting right next to him.
Wow.
And he said, so Orson Welles and him were talking, and he said this little man named Myron Fagan was sitting on the sofa and talking to Orson Welles. And Orson Welles said to the group at the house, he said, everybody be quiet. He got everybody's attention. Be quiet. And he said, listen to what this man is saying. This man is talking about something that will blow your mind. Listen to him. And Anthony Hilder said, I didn't even know what he was talking about. But Orson Welles told everybody, be quiet and listen to what this man is saying. And he said, the little Myron Fagan, the little old man, began to tell him about the world, the way it's working and who's doing what, and talked about something called the Illuminati and the secret societies who are going to destroy America and set up the United Nations and bring in Zionism in Israel. And then they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and here's how they're going to do it, and here's who's going to pay them to do it, and here's how it's going to work. And one day you will wake up in America and find that all over the world we're in a communist concentration camp. And he said, and this is what the old man was saying, Myron Fagan, and he said, so Anthony said to me, I asked Myron Fagan if he would come back to Hollywood. I would pay the expenses. I would have him come back to Hollywood and have him record just what he has said tonight at this party. If he would record it on a tape, and I want to put records out. He said this was way before the tape recording industry. And he said, so I want to put 3 records out, 3 third degree records with Myron Fagan explaining the world of conspiracy, the Illuminati, and how it works. And like I said, I heard about it the following year, in 1967. It was recorded in 66. I heard about it in 67, and I got that series of records. And I can tell you, nothing in this world I have ever heard even came close to what that old man did. It was the most extraordinary story I have ever heard in my life, where he, back in 1966, laid out what was going to happen, who they are, what's going to happen with the UN, and how it's going to be a conspiracy of the Illuminati to overthrow all the governments of the world, and how they're going to trick the whole world into going into war in the Middle East, and they're going to trick the world into following the Nazi Party, and the Communist Party will be set up in the Soviet Union. This old man knew it all.
Wow.
Telling the whole night at that party. And so today I have that on my website. All you have to do is go on to Jordan Maxwell Show and join my research society and listen to the audio video section of my research society. Listen to the audio. It's about 2.5 hours long, and it will knock you out. It's something you've never heard before, and it's the most extraordinary story I have ever heard myself. It got me started. That really got me started.
I was going to ask you that. Did that springboard you off into researching all the information from those vinyl discs?
Oh, heavens, yes. I was giving lectures back in 66. I was giving lectures back in 62 and 63 before Kennedy was assassinated. I was giving lectures on secret societies and their influence in religion and government, and talking about the banking families of the world, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. I was giving lectures on all of those subjects at little small venues, I was giving lectures at the local libraries. I would rent a little room and advertise it, and I would give you lectures at library rooms, and small little groups would invite me to speak. But it was not until 1967 when I was introduced to the recordings of Myron Fagan that it just blew me away. I had never heard anything so easy to understand, and he explained the entire plot against civilization by what he called the elites, and we call them the elites today. It's an incredible story of betrayal, and boy, does it tell you everything. You listen to that one lecture on my website, the Jordan Maxwell research website. You listen to that one lecture, and it will tell you everything. It's all there. Who did it, how they did it, what they're doing, and when they're going to do it, and who's paying who. It's the whole story is there about the world you live in. It was done all those years ago, back in 1966. And it's still today a mind blower. And so that's what I learned a lot from Myron Fagan, a lot. And I began to do all kinds of research on the stuff I was hearing, and that's who I am today. I've been following this subject for some 60 years, 59 years.
And you mentioned the word elites and how the word El and Elohim and Archangel Michael and Israel, and how that is that's the word for God in Hebrew. Is that correct? How did you come across all of that? Was that on those vinyl discs too, or did you happen to?
Yeah, a lot of that is on my research society. Go on my research website. A lot of it, I talk about where I found the information, how I found it, and where it came from. And I've got documents on my research society website. I have documents on there, and the folder is called Interesting Articles. So after you go to the audio video and listen to the audio lectures that will blow your mind, after you listen to those articles, go on another folder that's called Interesting Articles. And on Interesting Articles, there are some articles, long articles that will knock you out, that you've never heard before by anyone, never seen before, documents about the world you live in, and what it all means and what's going on the earth that nobody else has. I have them because I know the people who wrote these articles, and I got them and put them on my website because I'm telling you, it's the most extraordinary story. When you go on my website, go to Interesting Articles and read the first ones, and it's an extraordinary story about how the world actually works. It's an incredible story. I've got some off-the-wall stuff on my website, on that research website that people have never heard before. So that's what I do.
That's wonderful, because a lot of people are kind of bored with what's going on out there now. They've kind of read all the books and done everything now, and they're looking for more interesting stuff. And it's wonderful how you can go back into those archives and listen to all the stuff, and you pick up bits and pieces that tie into all the questions that you ask, guys. Now let's get into. That's it. And this is how you become awakened, guys. And this is how you can make better choices in life, by either doing something or not doing something. And when we become really well informed about how the world works and what is really going on here. And this is why we have this fantastic Truth Frequency radio show on here. And this is why I started all my show too, because I wanted to get knowledge out into the world and have fantastic guests on like yourself, Jordan. Now we've got about 11 minutes, and I know this is going to be a bit of a big question. We'll pick it up on after the break too, but I know that you brought David Icke to America. How did you discover David Icke, and how did that all come about? That must have been an incredible meeting.
Yeah, I brought David Icke to America back in 1992 or 93. I brought him over here to the United States, and I helped him get his books published. I helped him by getting him to speak at conferences. I paid for his airfare to go to hotels around the world to give lectures. I had to pay for his hotel rooms, his airfare, and to get his books published. And so I was promoting him. I paid over $100,000 in 4 years out to promote David Icke. And so, and I was working for a company. It wasn't my money. I didn't have that kind of money, but I was working for a company that did have that money. And I was pretty much running that company. I was called an ideologue. I was the man who was hired for the ideas, to come up with the ideas of what to publish, what to tell the people, and what to finance and what to do with the company. And the company was a publishing company that had a lot of money. They had millions of dollars in the bank, and I could spend the money the way I wanted to. And so I was pretty much running the company for 3 or 4 years. And so I heard about David Icke, and that's a whole story I'm not going to go into, but I contacted David Icke and brought him to America. And when he got here, I sat down and talked with him and shared with him a lot of my pictures and documents and materials and written materials and documents. And I told him all about the reptilian races of UFO and extraterrestrial races of the reptilians. And so he went on to talk about reptilians, and today he's famous for talking about the reptilians. And so I talked with him about that when he first got here back in the 1990s, early 90s. And so, I've helped a lot of people, all kinds of people who are writers and lecturers and teachers today that are talking about UFOs and conspiracies and Illuminati and all that. I was financing them a long time ago and helping them and telling them all about what my work was, and that today now is finally everywhere, all over the world. We're now seeing television shows and movies about the Illuminati and secret societies. Well, I was talking about that back in 1960, some 59 years ago.
Wow. So, David's got a video out called something Mother Goddess or something like that, and he interviews Arizona Wilder, and Arizona Wilder talks a lot about the rituals and the reptilians as well. Now, what I want to ask you, Jordan, is that does Arizona Wilder says something about Zecharia Sitchin being a reptilian, and that some of his work is not completely accurate or true. It's kind of like a B-lie, B-E-L-I-E-V, lie and believe. What do you think about that? Is there anything that you can kind of clear up for us about Sitchin's work? Is it all accurate? Is it some of it not quite accurate, or is Sitchin a reptilian or not?
Let me tell you this. I was in business with Zecharia Sitchin. I paid him a large sum of money in cash back in 1993, 94, 95, something like that. I paid him a large sum of money in cash to sign a contract with me, which he did. I brought him from New York, him and his wife. I brought both of them to California, and I paid for their hotels and all their expenses. And I told him, I want you to come to California because I have a deal for you. I got a business deal I want to talk with you about. And so he said, okay. So he came out to California, and I took him to dinner, him and his wife and the people in my office. We all went out to dinner. And after dinner, he said to me, okay, what's the deal? And I told him, I want to do a contract with you where I will pay for you to go around the world to at least 7 countries. I would like to send you to 7 different countries and have you go, and I will send camera people and lighting people and all kinds of professional people with you. And you go wherever it is you want to go, and I'll pay for it. And I want you to go to at least 7 different countries and show and we will film you. We'll film you so we can sell it to the government. We can sell it to universities and schools and public television. Zechariah traveling the world, talking about his work, and we will film it and we will edit it and put it out there and sell it to the universities and colleges and on public television. There'll be a massive tribute to your work. 7 1-hour, films of your work. You going anywhere in the world you want and do what you want, because I really am impressed with your work and I want the world to see it. So I will finance you to go around the world and do whatever you want, and then I will own the product. And he said, all right. So I told him, I will pay you up front and I will pay all your expenses. And then when I'm selling this to the universities and schools and libraries and whatever, you will get a percentage off the back. You're back in. I'll pay you for every one that's sold. And so this way you could go around the world and do what you want. I'll finance it. And when you get back, then we'll edit it all, and then I'll pay you. Every time we make a sale, you'll be paid. And so he agreed to that. And so I know Zechariah Sitchin very well because I was in business with him. And we had opportunities to talk quite a bit because I was in business with him. And wherever I get him to speak, I was always getting him to speak at conferences. And when he would speak at a conference, I'd go with him. And so we had a lot of hours that we could spend together talking about things. And he told me many things that were fascinating stuff as we were traveling together. And so I know a lot about Zechariah Sitchin, but one thing I will tell you about him, he was not only very, very legitimate, but he was well known in government circles. The governments of this world knew all about Zechariah Sitchin. But why? Because he was very legitimate, and the governments knew that. They knew that he knew something very important, and they wanted to know what it was he knew, and he was never telling them. He was never. I don't think he ever told them of the real secrets of the stuff he was working on. I don't know. Maybe he did, but I don't think so, because he was always very closed-mouthed. When it comes to his work, he was not telling people what he was doing. And so I learned a lot from him, and I could tell you a lot about Zechariah Sitchin.
Wow.
But at this point, I don't want to talk in public about it. Just know that I was his partner, and I helped him by sending him around the world. I paid him money up front to sign a contract with me, and I can tell you there's one incredible story behind Zechariah Sitchin. If it was ever known. It's an incredible story about who he is and what he did and how he gets his information. And it's an incredible story. So
yeah, because he was the one that could actually decipher the cuneiform tablets, which introduced us to the Anunnaki, which has spawned, which has blossomed out this fantastic story about where we come from or how we got here and our history and everything like that. There are so many people that when they first discover the Anunnaki and they discover Enki and Enlil and the story behind that, I mean, it's an absolutely fascinating story. We've got about 2 minutes to the break, but I just want to tell you a quick funny story, Jordan. My daughter was asked to do a composition at school. She was probably about 11. And she wrote the story about the Anunnaki, how they enslaved us, how they used the gold, blah, 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 blah. And she sat there watching her teacher read this fabulous story that she had, made up herself, of course, but of course she'd gotten it from, my videos and books and stuff like that. And she watched the teacher literally fall off her chair.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah.
That's an absolute classic, I just hope that teacher years later might read and come across some of that information and go, okay, that's where that little girl got that fantastic story from. She was only about 11 or 12. Isn't that amazing? Yep.
Well, a lot of people today are not aware of what's going on. They have never heard anything. They go to work and they do their job and they come home and watch TV and they live their life from one day to the next, but they have no idea in the world what is actually taking place on the planet Earth today, and no one is telling them. The people who run this world, the guys who are on the top of this world, who are running it behind the scenes, is like George Carlin said, they are a big club and you ain't in it. So the guys at the top have a big club and they know what they're doing and they know what's going on, but you don't know. They haven't told you. And they're not about to tell you. They let you stay ignorant and ill-informed and watch your ball games, your basketball and your soccer ball and all the other ball games, and drink your beer and go to work and do your job and shut up and stay out of the way.
We're going to pick up with Jordan on the other side of the break. Stick around, guys. This is a fascinating story, so stick around for the Nikki Colombo Show. We'll be back really soon for the last half hour of the break.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
From the break, and I'm your host, Nikki Colombo, and welcome to the Nikki Colombo Show, and we're talking to the wonderful Jordan Maxwell. Now, Jordan, the word demi in French means half. It means not wholly. And I learned a lot about the root word of words from you, and it's an absolutely fascinating topic. Now, the word democratic looks like it's got the word demon in there. Is there some sort of connection with the word democratic and demon there?
Yes, the word democratic today actually means Soviet communism.
Oh.
Period. So therefore, when you hear somebody say that they are a Democrat, every communist country, if you go back and look at history, go back into the newspapers and magazines, and go back to the library and look at what was going on in 1940s, 1950s, and 1960. All the communist countries in America, all the communist countries in this world, starting with the Soviet Union, China, and Cuba, and North Korea, and all the rest of the communist countries, they were all referred to as the People's Democratic Societies, the People's Democratic Society of Cuba, the People's Democratic Society of China, the People's Democratic Society of Russia, the Soviet Union. Everything, all the names of communist countries were always the same, the People's Democratic Republic. Democratic Republic means Soviet communism. Marxist-Leninist Soviet communism is what is meant by the word democracy, because communism proceeds to promote the common man. They don't promote the uncommon man. I like to promote the uncommon man. I don't feel like I'm a common man. I'm not common. I'm uncommon. I prefer to live in the world with Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Royal Rife, and all the other great minds that have lived in the world and did something important for the human family. They were not the common man. I don't want to be a common man. I want to do work which was the uncommon man. Because if you're of the common people, then that's called commonism. It's commonism. It means the promoting of the common man. And so the common man today is ignorant, ill-informed, unread, played for a fool, and played for an idiot, and has no idea in the world what's going on, couldn't care less as long as they're drinking their beer and watching their ball games. They're the common people. And so that's commonism. I don't like being a common man.
That's what the royal family call us. They call us common.
Yeah, I prefer to be an uncommon. I prefer to be uncommon. I want to do something that other people can benefit from, like Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla, who lit the world and gave us radio, gave us television, and people who have really done something on the world, on the earth, to really help the human family, to do something important. They are the uncommon people, the uncommon man. So these different communist countries have always been called the Democratic People's Republic. Why? Because democratic means the common people. And so when the common people speak, we call it a demonstration. Because a demonstration was when you see thousands of people or hundreds of people in the street, and they're marching with their flags and their signs, and then after ball games, they're turning cars over and burning buildings and busting windows. That's the common man. They're all full of beer and they're drunk and they're the common man. And so that's commonism. And I'm not interested in commonism. I'm not common. I want to be uncommon. I want to do something with my life that tells the people that I've done something to help the world of mankind. I don't care about being a common man. And in England, they even have a House of Commons. Meaning, yes. In England, there's the royalty. They ride around as uncommon people. They ride around in gold chariots, while the common people are called the House of Commons. And so commons means commonism. And so communism is nothing more than the promotion of the ignorant, ill-informed masses of billions of people in the world who collectively have got an IQ of 40. The common man. And so I understand communism.
Maybe you can help me out with this, but I get the feeling, because I had a stepfather who was Russian, and he was born in Kiev, and coming to Australia, he escaped the war, and he came to Australia. He absolutely loved Australia years and years and years ago. It was a great country, probably because he was going through so much communism back then. But is there a tie with communism and Satanism, Jordan?
Yeah, because Karl Marx himself was a Satanist.
Oh,
if you go back, yeah, okay. A lot of people don't know that, but there are reference books. You can buy these reference books that show you that organizations that he belonged to, the satanic rituals that he was involved in. He was involved in heavy-duty, dark, satanic stuff. And so he promoted the idea of promoting the common man. And so it became known as Marxist communism. And so today, today is what's going on in the world today, all around the world, is a war going on the earth for the freedom of people around the world to be free and have freedom to do your own thing and be who you are and do what you want to do and be as famous as you want to be, or be as important as you wish to be, or do whatever it is you want to do with your life. And let the common man drink his beer and sit home and watch a TV and go to the baseball games and get drunk and do whatever it is the common people do. But that's communism. And so you need to wake up and understand that all communist countries were called the People's Democratic Republic. Democratic means communism. Democratic is the rule of the majority. So a typical communistic idea of the rule of the people is when you got 50 different men all voting to hang one. And so communism says 50 men voted to hang this guy, so they kill him, they hang him. Well, where is there any law? There is no law. You don't need the law. The people have spoken. The people in the street have already decided they're going to riot. They're going to burn buildings. They're going to turn cars over. And there is no law because the common people are speaking. So therefore, it's communism. And that's what we're up against today. What we call the New World Order is nothing more than Vatican, Catholic, Vatican, Jesuit communism.
I think that's what's happened in Australia recently with the banning of David Icke, when a small minority of the Jewish community spoke. And yet we are predominantly a Catholic country. And yet a small minority is dictating to us about who we can hear and listen to and who we can invite into our country. I think it's a great big wake-up call for all Australians now that if we don't do something and get this overturned, it's a really big symbol that this New World Order is coming down. What are your thoughts on that, Jordan? Do you think that I understand about the Zionism and the separation between the normal Jewish person in the street and say, the Zionists, but behind that, do you think that maybe the royal family had something to do with having, because they've got such huge ties to Australia, do you think they are behind the decision of this small minority of Jews of banning David Icke, or do you think it's just this small minority? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the reason why Australia has canceled David Icke is because he is doing something that the powers in this world do not want. They don't want the common people to wake up and start questioning what's going on. It's like the parents that don't want their small child to start looking in their dresser drawers and finding out what they're doing. They don't want the children to know what they're doing. They're adults, and the children have no business sticking their nose in their parents' business. And so governments feel that they are our parent. They own us, and they don't want you looking into what they're doing. It's called communism. It's called mafia, La Cosa Nostra, organized crime. And so governments that are operating like organized crime criminals, they don't want you talking to the common people. Let the common people alone. Let them drink their beer and watch their ball games and play with their telephones and do all the silly things that they're doing and shooting up dope and doing all the stuff they're doing. Let them alone. Let them do whatever they want to do, because this is communism. They don't want the common people to wake up and stand on their own 2 feet and start challenging government, start asking questions. Who are you? Where does the government get the right to decide what I can do and what I can't do? Where do you get off doing these things to us on the earth? And so the governments know there's only a handful at the top of the world who are deciding everything for everyone, but there are billions of people out there that if they ever woke up, there would be hell to pay. If the people of this world ever woke up and found out who's really behind their government and who's really putting up the money and financing the overthrow of your government, the people, thousands and hundreds of thousands, would rise up against the government. And the people who are called the royalty, they know that. They don't want you talking to the common people. Leave them alone. You're going out there on the radio and explaining what's going on, so the common people are learning for the first time what's going on and who's doing it, and that's why they don't want you talking. So shut up. And so, keep David Icke off the radio. Keep him out of the country. We don't want him here talking to people and telling them who we really are and what we're really doing. It makes sense. I understand that. Why? Because we are promoting the common man. We want everybody to drink their beer and sip on their liquor and go to their bars and go to their liquor stores to get plenty of booze and watch their ball games. And just keep your mouth shut and just enjoy yourself and go to your silly little games and drink your beer and shut up.
Drink your fluoride water, which dumbs you down.
That's right.
calcifies the pineal gland and eat your GMO foods and breathe in the chemtrails going on. To me, you know what, Jordan, I can't.
I can't either.
The thing is that I know. Look, that to me is anti-human, and like our world is being terraformed at the moment, and I just get the feeling that a normal human wouldn't turn around and try and kill their own mother, our Mother Earth, and so I get the feeling that there is something off-world that wants to actually take over this world and completely enslave us.
Yes.
You know, and the people up at the top aren't exactly human. And when I try and point this out, boy, do I cop some shit, you know. Recently, I found a photo of Dark Journalist, and you can see the slit eyes, and I copped a lot of shit, and I thought, well, I was just questioning, you know, and I did a little research. There's no background on this guy, and there's, thousands and thousands of people listening to his stuff, and I'm thinking, crikey, okay, I understand that some of the stuff that he does makes sense, but there's a sinister thing there to drive the traffic down a dark road just through a couple of key words, you know?
Yes, but keep in mind that all governments on the earth, no matter what country you're in, all governments of all countries are corporations. They're incorporated as a company, corporations. And therefore, corporations cannot make a law. Ford Motor Company is a worldwide corporation, but they cannot make laws that the country has to follow. The Ford Motor Company law. There is no such a thing as a law for a corporation. Corporations can have their policy. Their policy is kind of like their own private law within their country. Within their company. And so they have their policies, but they don't have the law. They don't make the law for the country. And so all corporations and all governments are corporations. They're a business. And therefore, your Australia is a corporation. It's incorporated. And therefore, when I see you come out of a restaurant with some guy one night, and I call you the next day and I tell you, you know, that guy I saw you with last night, you better understand he's bad company, and you say, mind your own business. And then I find out you're going to get married and he's going to be your partner. What are you talking about? Business, company, partnership, is bad company, mind your own business, company, partner. Yeah.
Tingles down my spine right now, Jordan. Oh my God, it's all clicking in. Talk about the dots joining. Oh my God, this is absolutely fascinating. It's like when you talk about the court and being on the court and how it's a racket. And
that's right.
Fill the audience in with what I'm talking about.
Why do you have to go? Yeah, why do you have to go to court? You play basketball on a court. You play tennis on a court. That's why you have to go to court, because it's a tennis game. And so that's why when you go to court, it's a game. It's a corporate game. And so the idea is you have two teams that are playing. There's a team of lawyers on one side. There's another team of lawyers on the other side. And the whole idea of going to court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. Your people, your team of lawyers stands up, and they throw the question over across the room to the other team, and they question them. Then that bunch of lawyers, they stand up and they answer your question, and then they throw the question back to you. So now they put the ball back in the other guy's court. Then your team stands up and takes that ball and throws it back into their court. And now you're back and forth in court, arguing back and forth. It's a game. And of course, at any game, you have to have an umpire. You have to have somebody who's going to watch the game and make sure it's played right. So we have what is called a judge. The judge wears a black robe because he is an umpire. He's the umpire for the game. He's going to sit there and he's going to watch what's going on and make sure everybody does the game the way it's supposed to be played. That's all. He doesn't care who wins or loses as long as you play it right. And so this is why when you go into court, it's all based on money. It's all based on corporations. The courts are a corporation. And when you understand corporation is a business, And that's why I say if you're going out with some guy and he's bad company, happily it's none of my business. That's your problem, not mine. So it's not my business. But the point is that business and corporations, and this is why if you're going to get married, you have to have a marriage license. If you're going to get married, you must have a marriage license. Why? Because getting married, you are a corporation, and he is a corporation. So if you're going to have two corporations, two different businesses, and of course it's none of my business, but I got my own problem. But if you're going to get married, you got two different corporations coming together to do business. It may be monkey business, it may be bad business, but if that business doesn't work out, you're not going to God, you're going to court and bring your house and your money. It's just a business. That's why you have to have a license, because it's called a business license. Wow. And so this is why when you have an automobile, if you go in and buy a brand new car, you get something called an operator's manual. You get an operator's manual with the new car. It tells you what you can do and what not to do with your car. It's an operator's manual. Why? Because you are buying a new car, and therefore you are an operator. You're an operator of a vehicle. You're an operator of a car. So that's why you have an operator's manual. But if you're going to use the car to make money, if you're going to use the motorcycle to be a messenger, or you're going to use the car to be a cab driver, if you're going to use the car to make money, you're no longer a business. You're no longer an individual buying a car. You're now a corporation. You're now a business. Now you have to have a business license. And therefore, because you're using those wheels to make money, therefore we call it, you are then referred to in government as a driver. You're no longer an operator. You're now a driver, because you have a bus driver, a cab driver, a truck driver. You have a driver's license because you're a driver. Why? Because you're making money with those wheels you bought. You're making money with the wheels. So therefore, you have to have a driver's license. You don't get an operator's license because you don't need an operator's license. You only need it if the car is being used in commerce and money. And if you go to the law dictionaries and look up in a law dictionary, look up the word commerce, and then look up the word Congress, like the United States has a Congress. Mm-hmm. Go to a law dictionary, look up the word commerce, which means doing business. And the law dictionary will tell you that commerce is sex. Sex is called commerce. And therefore, the word Congress means sex. So first of all, there's co-ressing, and then there's congressing. You have co-ress, and then you congress. Congress is to have sex. And so Congress and commerce means sex. And therefore, if you're going to get married, we're talking about business. And thank God who you're marrying is none of my business. But he's going to be your... Yeah, he's going to be your part.
50% of marriages fail, or probably more.
That's right. And so thank God it's your problem, not mine, but I got my own problem. So you need to understand that sex is a business. It's a supply and demand. The woman gives to the man what he wants. The man gives to the woman what she wants. And she wants security. She wants a husband. Well, he wants her for himself. And so this is a business. And so she's a corporation and he's a corporation. Well, if you're going to get together, then you better go to the attorney and get a lawyer to get you a marriage license, because it's a business.
And you better wear a ring. You better wear a ring, just like the rings in Saturn too, huh? What do you think about that?
and if your business doesn't work out, I don't care. It's none of my business. But if it doesn't work out, you're not going to court. I mean, you're not going to God. You're going to court. You're going to pay. Bring your house, your car, your money, and everything you own, because you are a corporation and he is a corporation, and the business didn't work out. It's over. So your
And
business
usually
is
the
finished.
lawyer will get a big chunk of that money too. Well, back to both of the lawyers on both sides will get, maybe
Yep.
a house each or whatever. They chop it up in 4 pieces, and then you're left with nothing. I mean, it's it's not a really good deal. I don't think I'm going to get married again.
Well, here's the other thing too. You cannot pay a bill. In Western civilization, you cannot pay a bill. Not in America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, Western civilization, Western Europe. You cannot pay a bill. We say things like that. Well, I got this bill I have to pay. No, you can't pay a bill. You can discharge a debt, but you can't pay a bill. Let me give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. Suppose you are a painting contractor and I call you to paint my room, and you come over and give me an estimate, and you estimate it'll be $100 to paint my room, and I agree. Now, when you get through with the job, what do? You give me a bill, and you give me a bill for $100. That's the way it works. Okay, you gave me a bill for $100. I open up my wallet and I give you a $100 bill. Now I paid you. No, I didn't pay you. You gave me a bill for $100. I gave you a $100 bill. You now owe me $100. If you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. I'm not paying you. I'm merely canceling the debt because you owe me the same amount. So when I hand you $100, I'm handing you a $100 bill or a $20 bill. It's a bill that you now owe me. You gave me a $100 bill, I give you a $100 bill. Now we're even.
That's just like see how the world has been taught to think like an inversion. I know David Icke talks about a lot of that too, how everything is inversion, and we might as well just tip everything upside down and look at the world from that point of view. So we've got about a minute left. I just want to thank Jordan for coming on. Jordan, thank you so much. Oh my God, I know you're really humble, but you've got so much love out there. You've really blossomed a lot of people and springboarded them off into the most incredible knowledge and given us a sense of freedom with our minds and everything like that. And so quickly, Jordan, your website again is?
Yes, and just go on to my website, Jordan Maxwell Show. SHOW is very important. Just 3 words, Jordan Maxwell Show. .com. And when you go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, go on my Research Society website and join my Research Society. It's only a small contribution, for one-time contribution for a lifetime of looking at all of my research over the years. Go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show.
And that is wonderful. Thank you, Jordan, for coming on. We love you so much, and we'll be back next week on the Nikki Colombo